Hello friends and welcome. So last week people were talking about and we were working with trying to open up jaws and necks very specifically, upper back too, but those areas were really talking to people. A lot of people have been clenching their jaws lately, things like that. And so we were doing little massages in class that were awesome, but there's some stuff that we can do if you simply have some kind of raised surface. Yoga blocks are awesome. You can get away with one tennis ball, but if you have a sock, right, you could put 2 tennis balls in that sock. That's going to be handy. So I'm just going to have that on standby, and we're going to use that second. First, we're going to work with an individual tennis ball. So as always, it could be any kind of ball. It doesn't have to be a tennis ball. You don't want it to be too rigid, like not a golf ball or a softball, right? You want it to have a little bit of give. Racquetballs maybe, but that might get a little too soft. So click pause, go get your tools, your accoutrements, right? And come on back and join me. And when you do, we're going to start by lying down on your side, either side, whichever side works for you. So the raised surface, makes it so that my head isn't tilting and I'm in a lateral stretch in my neck, doing any kind of, anything to my neck. That might not be positive, we'll say. And then the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to give me a hard surface that's not down low for me to use for pressure. So I'm going to bring that ball in, and right about where your earlobe connects into the face, that's a place where you have a few different jaw muscles come through. So if you feel like you need a different surface that's higher or lower, adjust, right? Right now I'm not moving anything, and I'm going to stop talking for a few moments. We're just going to sit still wherever it is that you kind of feel that pressure point in your body. Try to release the tension by just letting the weight of the head, I'm not pushing down actively. I'm simply letting the weight of my 13-pound bowling ball, right? You guys hear me say that. That's your skull and your brain and the whole head, about approximately 13 pounds. This is going to be a slow-moving class. So while you're doing that, you can focus on the sensations from that area in the body and anywhere else that you might be getting some reflective sensation, or deferred, we sometimes call it. And then if it suits you, the first place we're going to go is we're going to roll the ball down towards the bottom part of the jaw, anything down in that realm. Right, and just kind of come down into all those muscles that go down into the lower jaw. Forgive my voice, but I'm also going to try to enjoy this a little bit, and as well as teach it. I need it. I have been jaw clenching a little bit recently. So again, there's no rhyme or reason. If you find a sweet spot, stay on it with pressure. Go ahead and just roll around, and again, we're getting that. Your jaw's a hinge. You can kind of think the top jaw kind of stays in place and the bottom jaw gets pulled up into it to chew, to talk, to all the things. So we're going in those muscles that run down into that bottom jaw. Play around for, I don't know, about maybe 2 or 3 more breaths. Wherever it is that you're like, yeah. And then from there, we're going to start to move back from right behind the jaw, right? Still kind of where the earlobe connects, but right behind the jaw. And put a little pressure there, and that might be plenty, and you might just stay right there. You might start to play with moving that back. Now, different bodies, different things. I find that moving it kind of right under my skull, right? The base of the occiput. I find that to be a line that's very helpful, and there's also a couple of acupressure points along that line. Don't worry about I have to get this far around my neck or anything like that. I mean, if you're like, ooh, that's a spot I could use, we're going to get the back of the neck in a little bit, so have no fear, right? Just go ahead and roll out what you can from this position.
If you want to move it down a little bit and just get the side, the whatever side is down. Sorry, I didn't specify. Move the ball down towards the shoulder just a little bit and roll again, you can. And then one more spot. You have a muscle that leads up from that same juncture up to the temple, temporalis, right? So not on the cheekbone, it runs under your cheekbone, but right above the cheekbone, there's that little kind of indentation in the upper side part of the head. La, 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 la. So you can just stay and put pressure on it and move around and put pressure on it and stay in stillness, right? These different areas. You can roll around on it. I personally like to do a combination of the two because I tend to be a roller and I got to move fast and I got to get this done. So I try to remind myself to sit still for a few moments. And then once I feel that area kind of give, right, or release, I feel like then it's really receptive and I will put super slow movements in. About 2 more breaths here, whatever feels good. Really feel it out for yourself. I'm giving suggestions here. And we're going to come off of that. I'm going to suggest you move the surface just to the side for a moment. Roll onto your back. Notice if there's any difference between the side of the face that you just rolled and the other side. And then you'll roll to the other side. Now I'm going to get up solely because for some of you, I'm your visual cue, right? So I'm going to come over to the other side facing towards the camera. So again, start with just that pressure point right about where your earlobe connects into the face, somewhere right around there anyway, on the other side. And just pause for a moment. Communicate with the nervous system and the brain. We're okay here, not trying to hurt you. Can you let go? Can you soften? Whatever your language, your communication is. And then you can just keep doing stillness and move from point to point, right? And rest on it with pressure. If it feels like you'd like to roll a little bit, go ahead and start to roll. Try to just think of that bottom jaw softening away from the top jaw, or you can think of it being the teeth. Be open to whatever you find without judgment or harshness, just being so kind and compassionate. You know, when we get tense, when we're holding tension, that's especially a time to be so kind and compassionate. You know, thank you so much for trying to help me out. It's a survival mechanism, right? For helping me survive, you could say. No, I'm just trying to pay you back and give you a little love for all of the work you do for me. Maybe about, let's say about 3 more breaths or so, I think, should be about even with the other side. Wow, I've got some knots on this side, holy moly. I should be doing this on a regular basis right now, probably. And then when you're ready, again, kind of right behind the place where the ear connects into that jaw, right behind the jaw. And then you might play with rolling it along the base of the occiput. And again, I'm still not pushing down. I'm just letting my head have its natural weight. And if you're like, wow, this is a little too much, I forgot to say this on the other side, I apologize. Softer ball and or, right, instead of trying to lift the weight up off of it and using all of those muscles, I would suggest moving this setup next to a wall, standing, and then you're not going to have quite as much pressure. Sorry about that. I forgot to say that on the other side. But yeah, do it with me right now and let me guide you through. And you can tell this is a lot of play. You can definitely do this without me and find the areas and the spots. Not that you can't do other things without me too, but meaning this one is once you've done it once, you're like, oh yeah, right? Other things that might be like, wait a second, how do you do warrior two again? Maybe moving it down a little closer to the shoulder and playing with that side neck. Again, we're going to do the back of the neck in just a moment, so don't worry about going too far around the skull. I'm realizing I'm using my upper shoulder to try to hold on, and I'm not releasing down into the ball. So I'm communicating and asking that to happen. Okay. The temple. So moving that setup if you need to, right? And again, first just maybe pausing for a few moments, making sure all of the muscles of the upper body are released. I think I might have just hit my mic. I apologize for that. And then if you want any kind of rolling side to side, up and down, circular, if you find a spot and you're like, ooh-wee, and you want to pause and breathe. Noticing if this side feels different than the other. About 2 more breaths here. I love doing this one in the morning to set up my day for sure, but this one I really like to do, and then you're going to move that block for a moment and come onto your back. I really like doing this one at the end of the day, right? Especially if it's been a tension kind of a time period for me. It's just a great way to release that tension as you enter into your evening. It could be right after work and or right before I go to bed. Oh man. That's a helpful tool for me. I don't do it very much anymore, but when I first realized how much I clenched my jaw and I was working with that line, I used to do this a lot. I used to carry balls around with me. Okay, so the next one goes something like this. This is where if you can put it in your sock and tie the end of the sock off so they stay contained, right? They're not going to move too much. Now, for some of my friends, if you want a little less pressure, you might find that you don't need the block underneath you, right? And you put one ball on either side of your neck spine and start up by the occiput. For me personally, I don't get enough pressure that way. I wish I had a block that was about half of this. So if there's something you have that's not quite as tall, right? But otherwise, I can use that block and bring that up just a little bit, bring that setup onto the block and then my head onto it. And I must say the one thing I like about this, I often talk about, when you're sleeping at night, those kinds of things, don't have tons of pillows under your head and leave your head in this rounded, this flexion position, which we do so much of our day. But with this setup, one thing that I think is kind of neat, if you can find it, is when I start to release all the muscles of my neck, it almost performs a traction, right? So it's almost like those balls kind of lift my skull up off of my spine vertebrae, my cervical spine. And you might just stay just like that, right? You do this against a wall if this is too much pressure. And then the way we're going to do the, quote, moving, rolling massage is let your head just really gently turn to the right and back to center and to the left, right? Yeah? I should say not right. But just go ahead and, that can be, I like to start off smaller with this stuff. Most all I'm a progressive mover, I call myself. But yeah, eventually maybe you do get a little bit bigger with it. And hopefully you're not looking at me and you're so into your own bliss and joy right now. But if you were to look at me, you would see I'm not rolling directly to the side. My chin just moves a little bit towards my right shoulder when I go to the right and towards the left. So I'm not using a lot of muscular control. I'm using the bare minimum of muscles to make this movement happen. And then, you know, if you're moving towards that bigger movement, pardon me, now would be the time to take about 2 more breaths, rolling yourself to your widest or biggest roll, if that makes sense. And then come back to center. And you can play with trying to move that down. I am so sorry, away from the skull, right? And that may or may not work on the block for you. And then if it does, letting that, and if you have a lot of neck sensitivities, this may be kind of scary. Don't do it if it's not right for you, right? But I'm supporting the curve of my neck spine, and I'm letting my head kind of gently roll around and onto those balls. If you have racket balls, there might be too much give and they might be shorter. This might not feel good, but with the tennis balls, I've got enough height. Take the block away and just do this on the ground if you're feeling like you need less, yeah, and I'm showing that variation so that it just really gently comes up. Sometimes we use blanket rolls under our neck, right? But again, it totally depends on your cervical spine. And then for all of us, we're going to gently bring the hand in, one of the hands, lift the head a little bit, move the block, move the balls, lay the head back down onto the ground, and just pause for a moment there and notice what you notice. We have one more stop. We could do this all day, by the way. And if you're really liking it, I encourage you to just keep playing. But again, I was going for jaw and the neck. So the one more stop is, we've got this little baby bulge, vertebral bulge on the back of on our very upper back, where our neck and our upper back connect. It's called the C7. It's the last vertebrae of your cervical curve. Pointing that out simply because that's approximately where you're going to put those balls. So I'm going to lift up a little bit to do that. I'm going to come down, so I'm no longer in the middle of my neck. Now I'm at that line where you can probably start to feel it's catching the upper traps as the upper traps move up into the neck. Again, I'm just going to rest on it for a moment. And if you're like, I don't feel enough pressure, hold on, I'll get you there, I promise, yeah. And the way we're going to massage this area, if it's right for you, do this against a wall if you need less pressure. You're going to bring your arms up and grab your elbow points. I often teach that typewriter, right? So play with that a little bit here, where the elbows move over to the right, and then I put more pressure on the right ball, and back to center, and I put a little more pressure on the left ball when I go to the left, yeah? And you can play with turning the head the same way as the elbows and see how that feels. What's that experience? If it's beneficial, maybe keep it. And then the other one would be turning my head the opposite direction of my elbows. I'm not picking up the weight of anything. I'm just rocking. And then for the last about 2 times that you do this, again, whatever you want, head still, head moving same way as elbows, head moving opposite. And then maybe for the last little foray, you let your arms do a circle, still grabbing onto the elbow points. You can keep your head still, or you can follow the arms with your head. Go the other direction with your circle. And then go ahead and tee the arms out for just a moment, leaving the balls there. Go ahead and maybe, depending on if you'd like just a little more pressure, put the feet on the ground hip distance, pick your hips up, and as you roll up, you'll start to feel the pressure go right into those balls. And one more round if you want it with the hips lifted, of maybe grabbing elbow points and moving in and out of that elbow, or maybe you just stay still and you just let that pressure move into that part of the body. Right? I'm going to move up just a little bit. Yeah, there we go. feel free. I mean, I'm not saying move up, move down, these things, but if it's like, oh, if I just moved a centimeter up, I would be in that spot that's talking. Like, do that. Roll down. I'm going to coach you to use your hands to lift your head today. Move the balls out of the way, roll back down. Shavasana style body. Upper arms, feet can be on the ground or legs extended, but just for these last few moments, just tuning in to that, well, from where the balls just were, all the way to the skull, the bottom of the skull, and wrapping that around onto the front of the skull where your jaw connects, up into your temporalis, your temples. And I hope that area feels softer on you. So I'm just going to stay lying down, and I'm going to sign off from here. Please don't bring your hands together in front of your heart. I mean, obviously, if you're on a timeline, you're going to probably get up. But if you can stay here for just a few more breaths and up to, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, please, please do. Give yourself that gift while your tension of the upper muscular body has been released. Be well, friends. I hope you know I love you unconditionally. You're beautiful just as you are.